Hello everyone. Welcome to Story Hub channel. Discover real stories of wife betrayals, shocking twists and turns and their secrets. Hit the subscribe button and get to our story. Open demand. My ex-wife dropped the bombshell that she wanted an open marriage and tried to blame it all on the alcohol. For those of you tuning in to the Story Hub channel, I bet most of you have come across tales of wives pushing for open marriages or even girlfriends wanting to open up their relationships. Well, here's another one for you. I've been hearing a lot of similar stories on this channel since I became a subscriber recently, and I'm hoping my email makes it on here too. My ex-wife and I were married for 8 years before we called it quits in April of this year. Let me tell you, the hardest part of all this wasn't just that we got married and divorced, or that it felt like a huge waste of time. No. What really crushed me was finding out she had already cheated on me early in our marriage. And how did I discover this? The little girl I'd been raising as my own turned out not to be my biological daughter. When I say that shattered me to my very core, I mean it. I was on the verge of doing something that would have landed me in prison for life. This was my baby girl. We had that bond. I'd rock her to sleep, read her bedtime stories, teach her to walk. Her first words were Daddy and Papa. I vividly remember my ex-wife getting incredibly jealous that our daughter only wanted to say Daddy or Papa and wouldn't call her Mama or Mommy. We were inseparable. I couldn't even run out to the store without her crying for me. It wasn't that she didn't love her mom. She just adored her dad, or at least who she thought was her dad. So, let me address this now because I know some of you out there are probably going to judge me. I chose to stay her father. My ex-wife claims she didn't know much about the guy she slept with. She knows who he is and where he is now, but it was a one-night stand, and she doesn't want to turn our daughter's world upside down by revealing that some other man is her father. I know a lot of you listening are probably thinking, "What an idiot, man. You're raising another man's kid." But here's the thing. Biologically, she might not be mine, but this little girl is my daughter, plain and simple. Do I pay child support? We have 50-50 custody, and my ex didn't pursue child support because she knew she was in the wrong. But I love this little girl with all my heart, and I always will. She's 6 years old now, and yes, I'm proud to call her my daughter. She is my daughter. Do I wish things were different? That she was biologically mine? Absolutely. But this is how things played out. And I've made peace with it. I don't want to know who the other guy is. I can't even imagine what I might do if I found out. I might just lose it. After I discovered she wasn't mine, I went through a roller coaster of emotions, crying, sadness, and then a deep anger that made me want to lash out. I even thought about ending it all, but I snapped out of that real quick. You know how people always say, don't mess with someone because you never know what they're going through? That was me. I was a ticking time bomb. I could have been out for a morning walk, and if someone had said the wrong thing to me, I might have pulled out my pocket knife and done something I'd regret. Or maybe it would have been some road rage. If someone had mouthed off to me, I would have taken it as an excuse to do something that would have landed me behind bars. I just didn't care. I was that broken inside. But I'm doing better now, and I'm genuinely happy that I'm still in my daughter's life. She knows me as her dad, and I intend to keep it that way. I'll probably never tell her that I'm not her biological father. Sure, there might be medical reasons someday that force me to, but right now, I'm not even considering it. So, for anyone out there who thinks I'm just a big pushover, you might want to tune out now. Not that the story's going to get worse. Because when my wife insisted on having an open marriage, I didn't stick around. I divorced her. I did what I believed was the right thing, even if some people think I'm a fool for staying involved in my daughter's life. And I'm sorry if you feel that way, but I love her, and I'll never stop loving her. I'm going to make sure she goes to college, and I'll be there for her every step of the way. So, let me take you back to December 1st, 2023. That day was our wedding anniversary, and my ex-wife and I were having what I thought was a great evening together. But, to be honest, the day itself was a nightmare. That Friday, we had plans to drive an hour away to stay at a cabin in a popular area, one that attracts folks from all over the state, even from out of state. We had rented a cabin there, and since I was swamped at work, trying to wrap things up so we could enjoy the weekend. I let my ex-wife handle all the arrangements. When we arrived, it turned out there was no cabin waiting for us. I asked her what had happened, and she told me she booked it through some website. Long story short, she got scammed. I have no idea why she didn't just use something reliable like Booking.com, Priceline, Vrbo, or Airbnb. There are so many trustworthy options, but she chose some other site because it offered a special deal. She figured it was legit since it popped up on the search engine. But these scammers were slick, and they got her good. No cabin, and the money was gone. It was beyond frustrating. We tried to find another place to stay, but everything was booked up. The drive back home was the most depressing part of it all. I had busted my tail all week just to have a relaxing weekend, and now this. I ended up pulling over at a Subway because I was starving, but instead of eating, we just sat in the car and talked. I got a call from my brother. He'd been trying to reach me earlier, but I'd texted him to let him know I was too frustrated to talk. I finally picked up, and my ex-wife was sitting quietly in the passenger seat while I filled him in on what had happened. My brother goes, "So, you're still out near Hocking Hills?" I told him, "Yeah, we're close by." Then he says, "You remember Mark, my buddy I used to play basketball with? He owns a few cabins out there. I talked to him about your situation, and he said he could hook you up with one of his cabins." I couldn't believe it. I asked him, "Are you serious? What's the place like?" He sent me Mark's number and some pictures of the cabin, and man, it was gorgeous. Mark was always a good guy. He played basketball with my brother back in high school and a bit in college, but he ended up leaving the team to focus on his engineering studies. Mark's done well for himself. He's making good money and has invested in properties like these cabins. I think he even owns a duplex or two in the city. I gave Mark a call, letting him know my brother had passed along his number. He was expecting my call and had already been filled in on the situation. When I explained everything, he was like, "No worries, man, it's your anniversary. Happy anniversary." I mentioned he was on speaker, so he made sure to wish my ex-wife a happy anniversary as well. Long story short, Mark generously offered to let us stay in his cabin for the night at no charge. I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled. The timing was perfect since we only planned to stay one night, and his cabins were booked starting Saturday. So, I drove the 15 minutes to Mark's place, picked up the key, shook his hand, and had a brief chat before heading to the cabin to finally enjoy our anniversary. I told my ex-wife not to worry about the earlier mix-up. Mistakes happen, and even though we lost some money, it was time to let it go and make the most of our special day. We spent the evening gathering wood, setting up a bonfire and warming ourselves by the fire. It was just the two of us. No distractions, just pure relaxation and enjoying each other's company. And at this point, guys, I had no reason to suspect my wife of anything shady. In my mind, our daughter was still biologically mine, and I was just soaking in the good vibes of our anniversary. We were drinking quite a bit, but both of us were still clear-headed. So when she brought up what she did, I knew it wasn't just the alcohol talking, even though she tried to play it off that way the next day. We were sitting there by the bonfire, swapping stories, holding each other close, and just enjoying the night. That's when she brought up the idea of an open marriage. I was floored, totally blindsided, and I had to ask her, "Why on earth is this even on your mind?" Here's how the conversation unfolded. Ex-wife: "I was thinking that maybe opening up our marriage could actually strengthen our bond, make it even stronger than it already is." Me: "What are you even talking about?" Ex-wife: "I've read about couples who, after being married for several years, decided to open up their marriage, and it actually made their relationship better. They loved each other more deeply, the sex was more passionate, and everyone was just happier overall, even the kids. There was no more fighting at home." Me: "Do we argue?" Ex-wife: "No, not exactly, but sometimes you make me feel stupid and small, like today. Do you know how embarrassed I felt after screwing up with the cabin reservation, and then you questioned me about why I used that website? I was trying so hard to do something nice for us, but I ended up feeling like I destroyed your trust in me. It made me feel really small, and it didn't help when you practically called me dumb." Me: "I never called you dumb. I never said anything like that. You know that. Why would you even suggest that? Sure, I mentioned you could have booked it differently, and I didn't get why you chose that weird website, but I never called you dumb. Anyway, let's not stray off topic. What does any of this have to do with an open marriage, and why do you think we need one? Ex-wife. It was just a thought. Maybe you could find someone who isn't as dumb as me. Maybe a smart woman like a lawyer. I wouldn't be upset. Me. So, this open marriage idea is just for me, huh? Ex-wife. Well, no, it's for both of us. Maybe I could find someone who's kinder to me, someone sweet who doesn't yell at me or make me feel stupid. Me. Okay. You've completely lost it. We're not opening up anything. Ex-wife. There you go again, being bossy and mean. We are opening up this marriage. This is something I want, and you don't get to make all the decisions in this relationship. Me. Complete silence. At that moment, the first thought that popped into my head was divorce. But before jumping to conclusions, I felt an urge to check her phone to see if she'd already been unfaithful. By now, it was around 1 a.m., and it had been a long, rough day. I haven't even mentioned the mess I dealt with at work before we even left. We started the day on the wrong foot, no reservation, no place to stay. But then things took a turn for the better when we got that cabin for free. The night had been fantastic until it took a nosedive with that absurd conversation. My ex-wife ended up sleeping in one of the rooms while I crashed on the couch downstairs, falling asleep to Planet of the Apes. I woke up early the next morning and decided to unwind in the hot tub. The water was perfect, and I watched the sunrise, just soaking in the peace and quiet. It was a moment I really needed. Then my ex-wife comes out, smiling like nothing had happened, saying, "I thought I heard you out here," and joins me in the hot tub. I just stared at her, wondering if she had any recollection of the conversation we had the night before. She had practically ordered me to open up our marriage, claiming it was what she wanted, and that I didn't get to make all the decisions. But now, it seemed like she wanted to sweep it all under the rug. As soon as she got in, I asked her straight up, "So, about what you said last night. Do you really think I'm going to agree to open up our marriage? I'm not okay with this." She looked at me and said, "Oh my gosh, can we please just enjoy the morning? It's not that serious. Besides, the alcohol had me saying silly things." I pressed on. "So, you don't actually want to open the marriage?" She responded. "I didn't say that. I think we should have a mature conversation about it instead of arguing and bickering." I shot back, "No, I'm not discussing this any further. In fact, I'm going to see a lawyer. We're done. I'm not staying married to you, and I'm definitely not opening up our marriage. What do you take me for?" She brushed it off, saying, "You're just being ridiculous right now. We'll talk about it later. Just relax." She started trying to get close to me in the hot tub, but I wasn't having any of it. Then I noticed she didn't have her phone with her, so I played it cool and told her I needed to go to the restroom and would be right back. She replied, "Okay, hurry up. I'm feeling frisky." I told her, "Sure, I'll be right back." I went straight upstairs to where she was sleeping, and there was her phone, sitting on the charger on the nightstand. Without hesitation, I grabbed it. I knew her passcode, and I didn't feel the least bit guilty about going through her phone. I remember hearing a story once, though not on your channel, where a guy was actually apologizing for snooping through his wife's phone. Man, if you're paying the bill, it's your phone too. And even if you're not, there shouldn't be any secrets in a marriage. So yeah, I went through it, and that's when I found out she already had someone lined up. That's why she was pushing the idea of an open marriage. I noticed a text notification from some guy, just the first initial and last name, H. Sutton. My first thought was, who the heck is this? So, I opened the message. The guy had texted her, "Hey, are you up?" There was no other conversation in the thread, like she had deleted everything before that. It felt off. Something wasn't right. So, I decided to do a little digging on Facebook. I started searching, looking through her friends list and even her friends' friends lists, and there it was. She was friends with an H. Sutton. I'm not going to reveal his first name because I don't want anyone to go snooping or anything crazy, but yeah, I found him, and he was connected to my ex-wife on Facebook. I checked out this guy's profile, and sure enough, he was married and in an open marriage. I went to my wife's Facebook Messenger, but there was no communication between them there. Still, the fact that they were friends, and this guy was in an open marriage, was enough to make my gut churn. So, I thought, what other social media does she use? Snapchat. Now, I'll admit, I have no clue how to navigate Snapchat. After some Googling and fumbling around, I managed to access her messages, but there was nothing there. She mostly followed a bunch of women, probably coworkers. Next, I figured I'd check her Instagram. I logged in, she had it saved, and went straight to her messages. And there it was, a whole conversation with this same guy, H. Sutton, from Facebook. They had an entire thread of messages. This man had been talking to my wife about open marriages, sending her articles and everything, trying to convince her that opening up our marriage was the best thing for us. And guess what? They worked together. This guy had always been in an open marriage, and he was feeding her all this information about how it was supposedly great for relationships these days. He had her convinced. Now, there wasn't any solid proof that she had slept with him. Their messages were mostly about food recipes or the articles on open marriages, nothing overtly flirty. But it was clear to me that this guy, who was already in an open marriage, was trying to convince my wife to open up ours. I have no doubt he wanted to sleep with her, and it seemed like she was at least considering it too. By this point, I had already made up my mind. I was divorcing her just because she brought up the idea of an open marriage. But like I mentioned earlier, all of this wasn't even the worst part. After discovering that she had been letting some guy talk her into opening up our marriage, and that she had been secretly talking to him without me knowing, I couldn't shake the feeling that there might be more to the story. It made me want to dig deeper and see if she had cheated on me before. I started searching through her phone, looking for dating apps or any suspicious messages with other people, but I couldn't find a single thing. However, the worst part came when I decided to take my daughter for a DNA test. I found a lawyer and started getting the divorce paperwork ready. I told my wife that I had the day off when our daughter had a dentist appointment coming up. She was pretty excited, saying, "Great, you can take her, and I won't have to." So, I played along, pretending I was taking our daughter to the dentist. But instead, I canceled the appointment and took her to get a DNA test. Guys, it's actually a pretty simple process, not nearly as complicated as I thought it would be, and definitely worth it. They used a cheek swab to collect a DNA sample from me, and they advised us not to brush our teeth for an hour before the test. That's why I canceled the dentist appointment. If they had done a deep cleaning on my daughter's teeth, it could have messed with the test results. 2 days later, I got an email with the results, and it said my daughter couldn't possibly be mine. Those weren't the exact words, but that's how I took it. I was furious. I wanted to tear into my ex-wife right then and there. I had already set the divorce process in motion, but when I saw that email, I confronted her immediately. My lip was trembling, and I was on the verge of tears, ready to end everything. I told her she was a piece of crap, and even threatened to hurt her right there on the spot. She just stood there, completely dumbfounded, saying, "What? What did I do? I'm sorry. I told you I'm sorry. We don't have to do an open marriage." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "My baby girl isn't mine." She stared at me in shock and said, "What?" So I showed her the email on my phone and explained, "When I took our daughter to the dentist, I actually took her to get a DNA test. I know about H. Sutton trying to convince you to open up our marriage, so I suspected you cheated. I wanted to see if our daughter was really mine. And she isn't. She's not my baby girl. How could you do this to me?" My ex-wife just sat there, apologizing over and over, saying, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say." I promise you, in that moment, I wanted to do something drastic, but something inside me held me back. I grabbed my keys and drove off. I just kept driving, man. I drove until I needed gas, filled up, and then drove some more. I stopped at random stores, just wandering around, not even buying anything. I didn't want food. I wasn't hungry. I was just lost in my own thoughts. I remember walking down the grocery store aisles, and people were staring at me like they could tell something was seriously wrong. And I swear, the smallest thing could have set me off. If some little kid had thrown a sippy cup from the cart, I would have snapped at the parents. I was ready to crash out. I was almost hoping someone would do something or say something to provoke me. It even crossed my mind to walk up to a cop I saw and threaten him to his face. I can't even explain why I felt like that. I just pray to God that I never feel that way again. That was the worst. The tension, the anger, just wanting to hurt someone or have someone hurt me. I remember grabbing my phone as soon as I got back in the car, realizing I had left it on the charger. I saw that I had a ton of missed calls and text messages, mostly from my ex-wife, but also from my brother. My ex-wife had reached out to him, so I called him back. Talking to him really helped calm me down. I broke down on the phone with him, crying, and he reassured me that everything was going to be okay. I opened up to him about everything I was thinking, including how badly I wanted to hurt my ex-wife. I just didn't care anymore. But my brother stayed on the line with me and said something that really stuck. That little girl will always be my daughter, and she'll always be his niece. Nothing was going to change that. He told me to get rid of my ex, but that we weren't going to let this mess change the dynamic with my daughter. She's still your little girl, and she's still my niece, he said. And that's exactly what I did. Like I mentioned earlier, she's still my little girl today. My brother still treats her like his niece, and her grandparents still love her the same. Nothing has changed. Everyone in the family knows the truth, but it hasn't made a difference in how we all feel about her. And I don't feel guilty or bad about it. I'm not going to let anyone outside of my life convince me that I'm a fool for doing this. Even if, true story, you think I'm stupid for it, and I respect your opinion, I'm never going to change my mind. It's funny how my ex-wife suddenly woke up and smelled the coffee once she was served with the divorce papers. She literally begged me to stay with her, saying she was stupid and sorry for getting close to someone at work and letting him influence her into considering an open marriage. She admitted that he was the reason she was thinking about it. His marriage seemed so great, and he'd been married for years, saying this was the best way to live today. He even mentioned some poly stuff, where multiple wives and husbands all come together to support each other. It supposedly makes for a better life. I told her she was out of her mind. I made it clear that I would never take her back. I laid out how things were going to go. She wasn't getting a dime of my retirement. What's ours would remain ours, and nobody was taking anything from anyone. We'd sell the house and split the proceeds, and I wanted 50-50 custody of my daughter. I didn't care who she had slept with to bring our daughter into the world. She was my daughter, and that wasn't going to change. My ex-wife cried and agreed, saying, "I don't think you should do that to her." I shot back, "You did this to her. If I walked out of her life, it would be entirely your fault." She eventually admitted that she knew who the guy was, and even where he was today. I asked her if she had been cheating on me with him, and she swore it had only happened once. She tried to tell me who he was and where he worked, but I cut her off. I didn't want to know. It could have been someone we both knew, maybe someone from a store we frequented. There was a guy at O'Reilly's back when I used to flip cars who was a bit flirty with her. But then again, there were a few other guys at different times. It could have been anyone. I just didn't want to know. If I ever needed to find him for any reason, like for medical reasons, she knew where he was. So, in the end, we divorced. We sold the house and split the proceeds. I've got my own place now, and she's got hers. I pick up my little girl from school every single day, and we spend a lot of time together. She splits her time between my place and her mother's. We're both in the same school district, and we live just 4 minutes apart. I can literally walk to her house. That's just the way things are now. I want to see my daughter thrive and have a wonderful life, and whatever it takes to make that happen, I'm going to do it. But honestly, what's up with all these marriages where people think it's okay to cheat? I saw a meme on Facebook that really stuck with me. It said, "Why would you cheat on somebody, lie to them, and deceive them when you could just be single and do whatever you want? Why do you think you all take care?" Listen, man, let me tell you something. First off, I don't think you're stupid, an idiot, a doormat, or a simp for what you've done. Not at all. Those words didn't even cross my mind when you said, "I still treat her like she's my daughter. She'll always be my daughter." I respect that. I'm not mad at you for making that choice. I can't speak for anyone else, and I don't know how other people might feel about it. Some might say, "Dude, this was your chance to walk away, to get out without any responsibilities." But I'm not upset with you, man. You've been raising her, and she sees you as her dad. That's your baby girl. The real question is, are you happy? That's what matters to me. When you guys share your stories with me, I'm not here to judge or say, oh, you made this decision or that decision, so you're an idiot, and you're not welcome here. No, everyone's situation is different. If this is what you felt was the right thing to do, I'm not mad at you. I can't say for sure how I would handle something like that. I've never been in that situation. I've never been married for 7 or 8 years, raising a child who looks up to me as their father, only to find out they're not biologically mine. I'm not sure I could just walk away from that kid either. The woman would have to take her away from me. I don't think I could just turn my back on her. But some people can. Some people can say, I'm done, I'm moving on, and it's not my problem anymore, and just start a new chapter in their lives. I'm not mad at them either. After all, it's technically not their kid. If they can step away and move on, then more power to them, you know? You